Welcome back to the channel, guys. Thought I'd move our semi-regular talking heads spot from the driver's seat into the driver's seat of the shoebox Ford, because actually today I just thought I'd spend a bit of time talking about why choose a 49 to 51 shape shoebox Ford as a custom, and in fact why were they and why have they been a very popular sort of stalwart of the custom car scene for the past 70 years or so. I think it probably comes down to the big change in style that happened in 1949. So 1949 marked the end of what could be called the fat fender Ford era, with the running boards and the large fenders at the front, and the sort of narrow engine compartment with the lift up sides or the pop-up hood, and a move towards more of the slab-sided approach that has obviously continued to this day. And that slab-sided design that came out in 1949 gave it the nickname shoebox. There are some people that call the 50s Chevys 55 onwards shoeboxes as well, but I think the shoebox Ford was the one that was originally called the shoebox, and that meant that there weren't a huge number of styling cues down the side. And so I suspect, not being in the mind of the original customizers, that what they wanted to do was to, as always, set their car apart from the ones that you'd see driving around the street. And so that led to it being probably one of the most customized cars, or the cars with the most style of customs, throughout that 50s and 60s kind of heyday era of the custom car manufacturer, or the custom car culture as it was starting to develop. Some very famous ones out there by Barris and Junior Conway being a particular favourite of mine. Junior Conway's 49 Ford went through probably about 3 iterations. I prefer the earliest one, which is the more mild custom, where he's got bullets on the grille and things like that. But there are some very nice ones by Barris, and equally there's some ones that I find particularly terrible, like the little bat. Really don't like the look on that, but they're easy to work on. They're easy to do mods to, section them, chop the roof. They came in a number of different body styles. They came in a 4-door, they came in a 2-door, and they came in a 2-door business coupe. Now the 2-door business coupe looks pretty good in its own, because it's got a slightly shorter section from the C pillar through to the B pillar, very much like a coupe. It's got a longer catwalk on it. The 2-door sedan, which is what this started life as standard, has a bit of an odd roofline, very high at the back, very flat, and it has a long section here for the rear window. In fact, it has a quarter light as standard, trying to trace this with my finger, about here on the rear window, which is actually because it sits over the wheel arch, and if you want to have roll up and down rear windows, you had to have a shorter section, so they filled it with a quarter light. Now that roof line lends itself very nicely to a chop, where the 2-door business coupe doesn't. So these 2-door sedans are customized, and there's loads of different ways you can do them, in terms of like angled pillars, straight pillars, you know, varying levels of chop, and they almost all, if they're carried out well, look decent. 4-doors maybe not so much, they're a bit more difficult to work with. So bearing in mind the work that I've put into this, why have I and so many other people chosen this over the other traditional custom car, which is the 4951 Mercury? I mean, it's a good question. Primarily for me it comes down to availability and cost, because this was a hell of a lot cheaper than a Mercury of the same era. And I think the second thing is that you can really only chop a Merc one, possibly 2 ways, and actually have it look decent. there's not a huge amount you can do to it, especially with the 51 rear window. People have to let in a 49 or a 50 window in order to get a nice flow at the back. It's a lot harder to work with the 51, whereas obviously in the shoebox the 49 to 51, they all shared pretty much the same components in the roof, and so therefore you can work with all of them equally. And yeah, I've lost my train of thought here. Where was I going? So you can really only chop the Mercury in one kind of way to have it look decent, and so therefore you end up with kind of almost all of those 49, 51 Merc Customs pretty much looking the same. Obviously there are some absolute sort of hero cars from the 50s era there, which are like world famous and changing hands for millions of dollars, but for the average man on the street, you can't do a huge amount to them without them all looking very, very similar. Whereas the shoebox is a little bit more versatile, and to be honest, they're so badly built from the factory, just like thrown together cheaply, that almost any custom work is going to kind of improve the fit and finish of the panels on them. So yeah, 4951 Ford, first of the slab side cars, ideal for customizing because there's so many around, they're very cheap, and they're really, really versatile. Maybe one day I'll get a Mercury, but the big question is, why 49 Ford? Well, 49 Ford, 50 Ford in this case, because I couldn't afford a 50 Mercury. And probably, if a lot of people are honest, that's the reason why they did it too. But ultimately, if you're interested in them, look up how versatile they are for customizing in comparison to the 50 Mercury. And yeah, if you've got one and you're interested in giving it a go, chopping it up, sectioning it, doing what you want to it, just do it. It's only a car, and it's going to look very cool when you're finished. Okay, till next time guys, check out the rest of the channel, see what we're up to, and I'll catch you next week.